Hey guys, Flawless Waters here, and today we are going to be talking about supply. I do apologize for taking so long to come up with these videos. It's because I'm afraid to release something that I don't think is perfect, but then I realized that I just use that as an excuse not to release any video, so I'm just going to release these even if they're not perfect. I hope you guys can find something useful from it. If they're not perfect or there's things that you think that I missed out on, please let me know in the comments below. I really do read every single one. So today we're going to be talking about supply, the second part of our what to consider when you're buying an item and if it's a good item to sell. So for supply, what the heck is it? In our terms, it's just going to be how easily we can restock this particular item. Now this item will change based on whatever it is that you want to look at, but in our terms, it'll just be, okay, how easily can I restock this item? Why the heck is it important? Simply because if you're going to be reselling something and you want to find a good market and a good model where you can just keep repeating the same process and keep making money the same way, usually it starts with finding a good item that has a certain amount of supply that meets your requirements. Does that make sense? So if I'm going to sell something, I'm not going to do it if I can hardly ever get my hands on it, right? So now that we know what supply is and why it's important if you're a merchant and you want to make money looking at items and reselling them, we got to talk about how you want to check them. So imagine someone tells you, okay, they're like, okay, dude, I heard this item is like selling really well. I made some pretty good money selling this. I think you should definitely get into this. So what I would say is, oh, that's really interesting. Like, thanks for telling me that. And I would use my own tests to find out. So there's 4 tests that we can run to see if there's like the level of supply, and then we can decide if it's worth it for not, or if it's worth it for us or not. So the first thing I would look at is just the existing stock. Now, a lot of this may seem obvious, but for some people it's not, so bear with me and let's look. For our example, we will use, I use this a lot and I'll keep using it a lot, but I'll check the existing stock that's on the trade broker right now. So like for now, you'll see, okay, there's a lot of Masterwork Alcahest. If I sort by number, yeah, there's a ton, right? So I'd be like, oh, okay, there's a pretty good amount. This is definitely something that I would want to get into if it passed the other tests. And then I would just see, okay, so I check the existing stock. It seems to be pretty good. Remember, this is all subjective, right? It depends on the item and how thirsty you are. So for Masterwork Alcahest, I check the existing stock. From my experience, I know that that's actually quite a bit. So I know that's a pretty good supply. And then I would check the recent history. So you'll notice that if I check the recent history here, you'll see that for the date, because remember you can organize by the date. You'll see that by the date, it sells a lot on the same day. I mean, look at that. A ton, right? So this to me is one extreme of something really, really high in supply. Most things will not be like this, but usually they will be. Consumables anyway. And loot boxes when they first come out. But anyway, so I would check the existing stock, and if there's a lot in there, I would check the recent history, and there's a lot that was sold. And I would be like, okay, there's a lot that was sold, which means that people are getting their hands on it, and the turnover rate is pretty high. And the only way a turnover rate could stay high is if people were constantly putting it back on the market. So that means, okay, there's a pretty decent amount that's out there. So let's say Masterwork Alcahest passes these 2 tests. Then I would ask my friends, right? Now, friends, I cannot emphasize how important friends are in this game, because for me, I'm not on that much. So my guild members and people that I trust a lot that also merge with me and are richer than me, I would literally just ask them and be like, hey, what do you think about this item? I heard it's pretty good. And then I could just get their opinion on it. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Some people have been on this game way longer than I have, and I can just take their expertise and apply it to my own situation without having to learn, make all the mistakes that they've made. It's really, really good to listen to like advice from your friends or your mentors. And then the last one is just being aware. Now this one can be a bit vague, but what I like to do is, and I'll show you guys how, I like to have this trade window out here. So whenever I'm playing or doing anything at all, I can see what people are selling and buying. And I'll notice things like, okay, oh, I saw this writing skill like maybe 30 minutes ago. That's interesting. So it just goes into your subconscious, but it's nothing really big. It just helps you make a decision. Now the way you would want to do this is you can literally just click this tab and you can drag it out, right? And you can put it anywhere you want, and then go to tab options, and then you can just click whatever you want to show up. So I would usually do bargain and trade, and then you can confirm. But before you do that, you can just say like trade. So you can literally just do that, and now I got a trade window right here. So anytime someone wants to buy or sell something, it'll just pop up. See? So that's one of the ways that I like to be aware. Just being aware helps a lot because you can really just avoid a lot of the things that most people that aren't aware or they're oblivious to, they just wouldn't notice it. And it's just really good to kind of get a sense of how the market is going right now. So like in the time that we've been on, I've noticed that the EMP rate has gone down. You see that? Want to buy EMP 110? Last time I checked it was 113. I've been gone for a while, but so I can see, okay, just from that I already know the EMP rate's gone down, probably because there's not as much demand. So people are trying to sell it lower so they can sell it. Anyway, that's the 4 tests that I would run. Check the existing stock, check the recent history, ask your friends, and then just being aware with the trade window and just noticing these things. So we can go through some examples. So on the very left, let's just assume that is the most, there's a lot of supply. On that extreme, I would say Masterwork Alcahest is one of those. Other things that I would say is like that is probably pretty much any consumable. So Master Enigmatic Scrolls, you'll see that there's so much, right? I mean, there's a lot. And I would check recent history, and let's see, do they sell a lot on the same day? 100, 50, 10. These ones I would ignore because they're not really much. 25, 25, 79, 40, 40, 10. So you can see like this is a lot, you know? And even as I go down, still 620. So that to me is a lot, right? Now let's go to something on the medium scale. Let's talk about liquid bravery. So let's see, 16, 10, 9, 6, 5, and already past the first page, we're in like 3s and below. That to me is not something that is a lot, right? So the existing stock tells me there's not a lot of supply for this. And I would check recent history just to be sure, but I already know pretty much what it's going to tell me. Look at this, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Even if they all sell on the same day, it's just not that much quantity. For me, there's 10 here, that's rare. 2. So I'll notice that this sells a lot on the same day, but they're all in stacks of 1, right? It's important to realize how many stacks are being sold. If it's just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, that doesn't really tell me that's not really a good sign for me. So a couple things I want to point out to you guys right now is you'll notice that I am looking at the numbers, but I'm also incorporating my personal experience into this. And so that's one of the things that is going to help you guys as you keep practicing and experimenting is you'll know the state of the market, maybe even better than I will. And you'll just know these things based on experience. And you'll start to get, I talked about this before, like vibes. You'll just know from experience, from your subconscious telling you, you'll just know. And that just comes with experience. So you really do have to try these things out. I've mentioned it before, but I do think the stuff that I teach you guys in these videos is worthless if you don't go and apply them. So, you know, being aware helps, but doing it helps even more because you learn so fast if you just do these things. So a little bit of rant there, but existing stock, recent history, this one, not so good. I would say it's probably more on the right of not a lot of supply. Now, we've talked about one with a lot of supply, one with a little bit of supply. You can do this for pretty much anything. You can do this for weapons. The only thing that I would caution you guys is EMP, right? EMP is not the same as consumables because that supply is not from in-game money, right? It's from people's real life money. So that would have to be a different set. And that would be something where I would rely more heavily on awareness and asking friends. Because looking at, like, let's say, okay, there's 3 on the market right now. So what does that tell me? It's really rare? No, that's not the case because I know from experience that a lot of people sell EMP. So I know that I could get this really easily. And that's what I mean. EMP items can be misleading. I wouldn't look at the market for EMP items. Everything else I would, but not for EMP items because supply is not based on the existing stock in here. It's not from within the game. It's from real life money. So that brings me to my next point. We covered this one, advice from my personal experience. You got to do these things. I can't say it enough. You got to do these things and just learn from them, because that's really how you're going to learn these things and incorporate them into your everyday life. Even without the game. It's just like really good, I don't know, like stuff to be aware of, you know? But I was talking about EMP, and that brings me to my other patterns. So these are other things to be aware of. You want to be aware of the origin of the item that you're looking at. So for instance, when I talked about EMP, I knew that the origin was from real life money. It's not from in-game money. So that changes how much supply there is, right? So from my personal experience, what I can tell you guys is when there's a new patch, people are going to really try to sell EMP because they want to make money. They don't know how to make money like we're doing it now. So they want to make money by selling real life money. And during those times, after a patch comes out, they're trying to, you know, get full gear, whatever it is. EMP supply goes way up. Normally, it's still pretty high for me, even when there's no patch, because people just, they don't know how to they don't know how to make money, so they sell money or they sell EMP. So usually it's pretty good supply. But I wanted to mention, like, you got to be aware of the origin, where the item comes from. If it's coming from a dungeon and a patch just came out and a lot of people are running that dungeon and it drops that item a lot, then I would know, okay, well, that supply is going to be really high during the time that a lot of people are running this dungeon. But once, let's say, people are fully geared and they don't need to run that dungeon anymore, then that item that comes from that dungeon will not have as high supply. And that's just something you got to be aware of. You got to trace these items back to where they originate from. In case of EMP, it comes from real life money. In the case of dungeon items, it comes from that particular dungeon. And, you know, like just trying to trace these things really helps you plan for the future. And then with the patches and all that stuff we talked about, that goes into the time and fluctuation category. So I know that the supply of EMP fluctuates based on when a patch comes out and how desperately people want to get money, right? Fluctuation of people running the dungeons. Also, when a patch comes out, people run dungeons. They sell more of the dungeon loot that they get, and just pretty much anything that fluctuates, you want to be aware of. And you can do that by looking at these patterns. So that's pretty much all that I have for supply. Supply is pretty straightforward, but what I've given you guys today is pretty much the basic context of what it is and why it's important. I gave you guys 4 tests to check for yourself when you're deciding if it's a good item to buy. And I gave you guys 2 things to be aware of when you're really going deeper and deciding, okay, is this item good for me in the long term? Where does it originate from? Will it fluctuate in supply? And then the overarching theme that I've given in all my videos is you got to do these things. You got to, being aware helps, noticing helps, but really doing it, applying these things helps even more. You'll be amazed at how much money you can make just by being aware. It's not easy in the beginning, but as you do it more, you get better at it, and it just becomes really, really easy. So I hope that helps you guys out. If there's any questions, comments, concerns, please leave a message in the comment section below. Anything that you guys want to hear me talk about too, please leave them in the messages below. I've noticed some kind of patterns that arise from the questions that I've been asked so far, and I'll try to make videos addressing those questions as well. So I'm willing to work with you guys and just provide you guys some good content that would help you guys. So good luck out there, and I hope you guys make money.